I've had 3 different teams in Asia, even in the LCK, approach me about trying to sell their team or buy their team, and they
Wow.
couldn't find any buyers. I think more transparency should happen. Like, I'm all for having public salaries of players. Let's go do it. I'll vote yes every single time. It sucks that, Canyon signed for a hell of a lot less than he needed to.
Et bonjour à tous, on se retrouve dans cette nouvelle émission avec un CEO Talk avec Arnold qui est juste le big boss de GenG en Corée, l'équipe que vous connaissez évidemment tous et toutes. On va pouvoir discuter de pas mal de choses, notamment de l'aspect business de GenG, et donc très très heureux d'être avec lui. Et pour la deuxième fois, parce qu'on avait des petits problèmes pour la première interview, donc pour la deuxième fois, je suis avec Arnold. La première n'a pas pu sortir parce que j'avais des problèmes de son. Je n'en aurai pas ce coup-ci. So thanks Arnold for being here for the second time. Even the first time didn't go well on my side with some technical issue. I'm really happy to be here with you a second time then.
No. This is fun. I'm always happy to do this, and like each time we do it, we'll make it more fun and more interesting. Like I'm not that fun, so if we do it enough, maybe I'll get a little bit more fun.
And you said to me that you could answer some pretty harsh questions, so I've asked my community to maybe get some or have some ideas.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, once you ask the harsh questions, and then I'm gonna go on X, and then be like, "Oh, how dare I was bamboozled. I was ambushed.
yeah,
I was
exactly.
ambushed by Trayton." Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the type of person that ambush people, I think. Well, first of all, because we're already talking, but can you just present yourself to the viewers that maybe just don't know you?
Yeah. Last time you asked me to speak in French, I didn't get time to practice, but after the call, I was like, I should have tried to practice.
Huh?
This is my one moment to practice. So, je m'appelle Arnold Hur.
Yeah, nice.
Je suis le CEO de GenG.
Yeah.
And j'adore Paris and France and
Yeah, that's
and French
nice.
food and especially French wine. Good Bordeaux is incredible,
Yeah.
incroyable. So I'm gonna learn French just so I can pretend to know wine.
Oh, that's a nice thing to do in your life. But your French is already pretty good, to be honest. You could fool some people in the wine business, I'd say. And just how did you get there? How did you get to be the GenG CEO?
So I grew up, obviously like everybody else in this industry, or hopefully most people in this industry, like playing a ton of games. I grew up in Los Angeles, near downtown LA. I didn't start out in gaming. I went to school and I started out in finance. So I started in investment banking, Goldman Sachs. Really didn't like it. Really didn't like working in finance that much. So moved from there to do management consulting at the Boston Consulting Group. And then did a startup, it completely failed. But then I fell in love with tech and everything new. So I joined Google. And if you type in like Paris hotels and you see that box that pops up on Google, I was part of the team that helped launch that, which is actually a really proud achievement that I think I was glad to be a part of. But during my time at Google, actually, I played in a ton of League of Legends tournaments with like all the engineers. We even built like a matchmaking system based on kind of like MMR / implied MMR, how many hours you're putting in, a bunch of stuff. So it's almost like Face It before Face It. I just got this weird rep as this like business guy that just played a ton of League and was like really hardcore into it. I'm not athletic, so my greatest athletic achievement in my life was one year where we won intramural Google intermediate basketball, no, first place. We even like 3D printed like championship rings for that. And then also won, we didn't win, but we got 4th place in the League of Legends tournament.
Ooh, nice.
My biggest problem was that I was a Shaco 1 trick.
No,
And
come
once
on.
they figured that out, it was
Uh,
like I had to go learn Vi because Vi just came out, and then they started banning Vi, and then I was like, uh-oh, I don't know anything else.
and what
So
was your Elo in League of Legends?
the highest I ever got was Plat. I stopped everything at Plat. So that's my approach to everything. I stop at Plat because I think above Plat, just such a huge time commitment. that like I my thing is you can be like not very good and just not be dumb to go platinum. But anything beyond that, unless you're freaking talented, you need to spend a lot of time, right? And like I'm not talented and I don't have time, but I also don't want to get super stressed and angry, which
Yeah.
I do get. So yeah. So anyway, so after Google, I joined. I did actually joined an e-commerce startup, which I think is doing pretty well now. So and then I got recruited into GenG when we were first starting this company. Out of we had like four people in a
Oh,
conference room, and that was like we're working out of there for like a year. And like it's funny, like I remember early days, we didn't even have League of Legends. We just got into Overwatch. We didn't have a social media manager, so I was doing all the tweeting on social media on like the back then it was a Soul Dynasty
nice.
account. So it's crazy to think about all the progress since then, and hopefully, more progress from here on outward.
Wow. So it's been how many years since you're in working in GenG?
Man, this is like my eighth year. This is the longest I've ever worked anywhere in one place. But this is also probably the one thing that I absolutely love. Get to work with some of the best people in the world. Get to be inspired every. Like one of the most inspiring things is just watching young people do their thing and just be legendary at it. Like not just our players, but even our staff and social media content and like I sometimes I like sneak myself into the like creative meetings, and they're talking about some TikTok trend that I've never heard of.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
just like, I don't know how this works.
Hmm.
So it keeps me young, and so I really like it.
Well, the following question was about what do you love the most about your job, but I think you just answered it. And the second part
No,
of the
what I
question
love the
was,
most is doing this show with you multiple times until we get this right.
yeah,
You know.
exactly. And maybe because the second part of the question was, what do you hate the most
What do I
overall
hate the most?
about your job,
Um,
if there is something?
Oh, there's one definite thing, which is the speed that I want to move is at startup speed. But I don't control the industry. I don't control everything that happens, right? So I would love to change so many things about LCK. I would love to change so many things about Riot, but Riot has their own priorities, other teams' priorities as well, which makes perfect sense and is very logical. So working in an ecosystem where you're just part of it instead of like a company that can fully decide on how they're going to, move. That probably frustrates me the most. It feels like sometimes you're working in like government job rather than startup. So that's something that I like meditate in the morning every day so that I don't get like all angry and upset. And that's why I like do less weird like tweet storms or whatever these days because like I've tried to become more zen.
Okay, I see. I see. Then you have already heard this question, but I think it's a good timing for it. You just said that you cannot control everything. So let's say that you control everything, and let's say that you control everything in League of Legends. You're like the head of esports for Riot Games. What would you do? What would you change in the ecosystem right now?
You know, I think there's two parts to this question that people don't fully understand. And I always try to think about like, is it like just one thing or is it like many things that need to change? Um, I think fundamentally, there is a gap in the incentives are not aligned. So what I mean by that is, and I'll probably just list a bunch of stuff, and maybe I'll get in a little trouble for it, but let's go for it and get you some views.
Okay, nice.
So I think the biggest thing is right now in the competitive ecosystem that has been created, and I don't want to say only Riot has created it, right? We're all part of that creation. So I think it's really funny how every single time everybody always wants to blame Riot or Rito, but in reality, I think it's all of us are to blame for it, right? And so the biggest problem that I see right now in Riot games in League of Legends is that there is no incentives. The incentives are actually not aligned around you wanting to build a competitive team. The incentives, I will make more profit creating a losing team in League of Legends than I would creating a winning team,
Okay.
right? On average. And so that's a messed up system, right? So I was recently watching Dave Roberts, who is the owner of the Dodgers,
Okay.
talk about, hey, I wouldn't mind if in baseball in MLB they have a cap, right? So it's a kind of a cap. And then he basically said like, I wouldn't mind, being more enforcing of a lower cap at the high end if we can bring up the bottom floor of the low end, right? So and I completely agree with that. At the high end, prices are getting out of control. Um, at the low end, people are spending less than ever and just kind of mailing it in. That's not a healthy ecosystem, right? No, like it's just people are not winning in that kind of system. And I think the inaction that's been happening here is a huge red flag. Like I've seen so many incredible orgs that I was a fan of, or that I didn't like just because they were so badass and amazing.
Mhm.
They don't exist anymore, right? And so if we think short term, we'll be like, oh no, like teams are just complaining. Arnold's just complaining again. It's like, no, like I've been around this thing for 8 years. I've survived all the ups and downs, but I've seen all of these teams that used to be heavy spenders say, screw it, I'm not doing this anymore. And they're out. It's LPL, LCS, LCK. I've had 3 different teams in Asia, even in the LCK, approach me about trying to sell their team or buy their team, and they
Wow.
couldn't find any buyers. This is bad, man. Like
Yeah,
this
that's very
is
bad.
bad news. We're pretending like things are okay. I'm just gonna go and say it, and probably this will get you some views and some attention. And I'm not blaming Riot entirely. I'm just saying that we as teams and as Riot need to work together to fix this. Because otherwise, people are just gonna bounce. I talk to all these casters, and a lot of them don't see a future in casting anymore,
Yeah, because of
right?
co-streaming and everything.
Because of co-streaming, sure, but it's also because we're not doing a great job of monetizing the stream anymore,
Yeah.
right? We're not even trying. I think if you think about first principles, and I don't know if I'm going too deep into this, but I always like to try to like go at the root of a problem and try to find and fix that rather than anything else. And it's fundamentally this problem is at one point Twitch owned a monopoly on
Yeah.
esports. Twitch couldn't be profitable, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you think about that, that's actually the fundamental problem to fix, right? How can you own a monopoly on the entire ecosystem of esports and still not turn a profit? That is like the original. I went to Catholic school. That's the original sin of
Mhm.
esports that we still haven't fixed. All this other stuff is more about sustainability and how do we make small tactical changes. The other issue that I see is, I know Riot. This is not a Riot number. This is my internal
Okay.
Arnold's estimate. I think Riot's cut their esports costs in the last 2 years by about 40%.
Whoa.
LCK, the average team salary costs have gone up in those 2 years, right? There's a certain people with gold buildings and all this stuff. They're part of it, but we're guilty of it too. Like
Yeah.
all of the teams are guilty of it. It's not just one team, and I think it's a very oversimplification to say it's like one team. But at the end of the day, clearly Riot recognizes that hey, this ecosystem doesn't make sense at these prices. They're cutting their costs, but the action hasn't happened in the LCK, right?
Yeah.
And and I feel like in the LPL you have that crazy diagram system
Yeah,
that
in
they
the
have
system.
with the
Yeah.
lottery. I still
Yep.
don't know how it works. Like I need ChatGPT to tell me. Um, but no, I think that's a huge issue. I think co-streaming is great. I watch co-streams. I watch the official stream, and I watch different versions of co-streams as well. So I think people like to latch on to the most public-facing issue. But to me, the fundamental issues are one, the core esports content doesn't generate enough revenue.
Okay.
Two, not enough is being done about creating a sustainable cost structure. So the biggest issue is the top players are getting paid more than ever before. They're having a great time and they deserve it because they work their ass off and they're freaking amazing, right? Chovy, Ruler, all of the players, like they deserve all of every single dollar they get, right? And if our core revenue issue is solved, they would get even more. But because like the fundamental problem isn't solved, what I actually see is there's fewer and fewer opportunities for new up and coming players to actually get into the ecosystem, right? Nobody is even paying for challengers and players and tier 2, tier
Yeah, it's also, yeah.
3, right? All gone. Even in Korea, all gone, right?
Even in LEC, we have the
So
same problem.
yeah. And so I'm hoping the reason why I'm raising this flag is I'm excited Riot's making huge changes to the game because they're saying, let's give it another shot. Let's not just sit there. But as they make these big changes, I hope that considerations could be made to make the esports ecosystem actually work. Because I want to spend more into League. But right now, I'm having a hard time justifying any of it.
So it's on your side doing in this kind of context the transfer timing in the LCK with the price going really high and the team of GenG being like the team it is, like Chovy, Ruler, Kayan for sure, they cost a lot. How hard was it to do the transfer this year and to
Dude,
manage
I don't
that?
want to have a conversation with our players being like, hey, you like me, you like us, you trust in us, take less salary. Like, that's a stupid conversation, you know? And when I look above, outside of T1, T1's an exception, right?
Yeah.
Incredible team, figure, incredible. Like, that's just a different thing, right? Like, but let's talk about every other top team around the world, right? Um, it it doesn't make sense for people just to lose money to be a competitive team and to gain fans, right? Because the other option is just to not do anything and just sit there and collect a check from Riot, which is also really boring,
Yeah,
right?
that's
There's
very
no
exciting.
point. Yeah, there's no point in doing that, right? And so I think the fundamental issue needs to get changed. I think more transparency should happen. Like, I'm all for having public salaries of players. Let's go do it. I'll vote yes every single time. None of the other teams do though, right? So and other teams are like, they got their own prerogative or part of it is also that sometimes the people that are in charge of the teams are not the actual owner. Like they don't have an ownership stake in the company, right? I'm a part owner. So like I care about the long-term success of not just this year, but the entire sport. Versus some of the people are just like managing their P&L and say don't if for some reason all the salaries come out public and they say, wait, we actually are not winning compared to that other team,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like they're trying to protect their jobs, right? So I get it. If I were in their situation, maybe I'd do the same, but it just sucks, man. Like I just wish, you know, I would even be in favor of each league, each region publishing their P&L,
Yeah, that would be
right?
great.
Like then we wouldn't have all this nonsense about stuff that just doesn't make sense, right? Like it's funny every time I go on these shows, people are like, "Oh yeah, Arnold is saying they're broke," and I'm like, "Are you look at a roster? Like, what do you
Yeah,
mean? Like we're trying to make it work, but we agree it sucks that Canyon signed for a hell of a lot less than he needed to, right? And
yeah,
like
he could have had like better
yeah,
offers and for sure.
they're all. I'm not gonna say from where, like you guys can figure that out, but like. And I just don't want to have that conversation because, I want to keep investing into a sport that I love. I want to keep trying to make winning rosters. I mean, it doesn't mean we'll always succeed. But right now, the incentive structure is not structured that way. And, some of the greatest names in esports that we were most hype about, no longer there,
Yeah,
right? TSM, 100 Thieves, RNG, like the list goes on.
yeah,
No
FPX
longer
and
there.
stuff.
It's going to keep happening. It's going to keep happening, man. And some of the greatest casters too, some of the greatest talent, like some of the smartest, brightest, most passionate people have moved on to other careers. So we're having a huge drain of talent in esports,
But are you
and that's probably
still
like an unsaid thing.
optimistic about the future, even if everything is not going right right now?
Yeah, I think I'm optimistic about the long-term future. I am not optimistic about the speed at which we change.
Okay.
And to me, I'm optimistic about the long-term future because unsustainable things don't sustain. And I would rather have orgs with tons of history live forever, at least in our lifetime. Nothing's forever, but to me, that's something that I really hope does change. At the same time, I'm one vote, and also teams
Yeah.
don't exactly have a vote in the ecosystem. The publishers control it. So all I can do is try to, use my platform to at least give my view so our fans understand where I'm coming from, be real. I mean, that's what I tell our players too. It's like, look, man, if you want just the highest salary, absolutely go take that other offer. I'll even help you negotiate it. I'll even help make sure the contract doesn't have any funny, like weird clauses or anything like that, right? But if you like what we're doing here, you want to be part of it. Here's where we can do, and we're
Yeah.
never the lowest offer either, right? And it's very fair, but it's just same time, I wish we could do more, and that's something that I want to do a better job of, right? I'm late to this call because I'm on a sponsorship pitch, and like we're gonna have to go and be hyper aggressive on sponsorships, right? Just because that's kind of the only thing that's working right now, but that's not a viable, sustainable path.
And if you don't have most money in LCK or compared to maybe LPL teams or any teams, what is making GenG more competitive, or what can GenG bring to the table for the players, for them to stick with you and stay true to your process?
Well, first off, I think the players know that there's a certain culture that we have, that's dedicated to winning, right? We always put that first, and that's number one. Number two is we have a certain amount of respect for every single player that goes from top to bottom, right? These small things matter a lot. Where when we want to do content, we ask the player like, "Hey, we want to do this. Want to check in with you, make sure this is good." It's not
Which
that they want to do it, but at the same time, just the fact that they know they can say no.
and that you're asking
Uh,
is already something.
yeah, and if they say no, and I'll be like, "Come on, let me talk to them for a little bit," and like, and then we find a way to make it work and make their schedules work. Like those small things go a long way. And I also I think we have a very like honest approach with our players, about what we can and can't do, and I think all of that builds up to having like a great environment to work in, and I think so. I think we may not have the like flashiest stuff, uh, but we do have kind of that vibe or heart or whatever of what you're going to get, you're going to have a great experience, and one thing that we try really hard to tell our players is whatever time you spend with us, we hope 5 years from now you look back on that, and we view our success as 5 years from now you look on that season as the best season of your life, right? And like that's what we're gonna like try our best to do. And maybe that means you're getting paid the most. Maybe that means you have great teammates. Maybe that means you learn a lot and you grow a lot. Um, but I think we've built a great reputation with players in that regard. But one thing we realize is we need to do a better job of telling our story and making that more
Yeah.
apparent with fans. Because honestly, we're not doing a great job, especially for international fans,
Yeah, it's
right?
as a Western fan, it's hard to get to know like Chauvet, get to know
Yeah,
Roller. It's pretty hard. But to be honest, it's hard for every team in Korea almost to get to know Korean players. I feel like it's with the interviews and stuff, they don't really say much.
yeah, I almost feel like so one of the things the marketing team has requested me to do is to do more of this stuff. Of at least if Chovy everybody knows Chovy doesn't like doing interviews. But like,
I didn't
you
know,
know,
to be honest.
yeah. So it's like, all right, somebody has to tell the amazing story of Chovy, of Ruler, of Canyon, of Keen, of Duro, right? And so how can we go do that? And they told me, Arnold, go do that. So here I am.
It,
Especially for our French fans. Our
yeah.
French fans are freaking amazing.
And why is that with the French fan all of a sudden? Because for me, it started, I think, with a tweet from you. You had a tweet early in the year. You said, "I'm looking to connect with French fan. I'm saying that League of Legends in
Yeah,
France
yeah.
is very like passionate and everything." So how did you actually see that? How did you know about French fans?
It happened in Berlin in 24, where we're like, oh, we're in Germany. Like this is, you gotta go get like what is that? What is that? Schnitzel.
Yeah, schnitzel. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Beer.
yeah.
Beer was fantastic. Schnitzel, I don't know. The donor was incredible. Or Donner, yeah.
Yeah,
So every fan we met, especially of our team in Berlin, was French. So I was like, what the hell is going on over there? That like people are trapped. I mean, I know it's not that far, but still, they're traveling all the way to Berlin
yeah, it's kind
for
of.
our team. And we've never done any kind of outreach for our French fans. And so they've like sought us out from, from the middle of France and came all the way out to Berlin to support the team. Like we have to go investigate that more. We have to figure out like how we can reach out more to our French fans. And at every single point that we did, that it was incredible. Like we had fans cheering for us in Berlin, right? In Paris. And so we realized like this is an incredible fan base. And then I started looking into the data because I got like a data. I'm not like just a gaming guy, right? I'm like a data guy, right? So
Hmm?
I go look at like jerseys sold and like where they ship to,
Okay.
right? We're selling more jerseys in France than we are in the United States.
Wow. I didn't know that.
So I'm
Yeah.
like, what the hell is going on? Like we've clearly just ignored this incredible fan base for
Oh.
so long. And so, you know, I also, by interacting with the fan base, so one thing that I felt really a close bond with was they were actually true passionate fans that weren't just like fans of the player, but were fans of like the process.
Yeah, and the LCK overall also.
Yeah, and they were wanted to understand the story behind the wins and losses, right? And that desire to want that doesn't necessarily exist. Like, dude, I'm from America. I'm a California kid, so I think I can say this. Like North America is all about, hey, what did you win or lose?
Yeah.
That's it. What were your stats, right? And I'm like that too. I won't even, sometimes I won't even watch a Lakers game, but I'll like look at LeBron's stats and be like, oh, LeBron, he's washed, you know.
I see what
And
you mean. I see what you mean. Yeah, in France, we want
versus
the
like,
story. We want to see the struggle. We want to see everything.
yeah, like the beauty of sports is actually in the process and in the struggle and the successes and the failures and just the growth of players like Duro and like what they can overcome. Like that's actually the true fandom. Uh, and I think I don't know what's going on over there. I don't know what's in the water, but it's something like really special about esports in France
Yeah.
that I think has kind of a natural brotherhood to what's happening in Korea as well, and I'm sure in many other markets as well. It's funny. We even did like a cool thing with the French embassy in Korea. So that was really cool. So I want to bring our players to the embassy. It's a beautiful building at some point. I think that's important. Also, I, I know I don't want to make our Berlin fans upset, but our players also like the food in Paris a lot more than Berlin. I remember.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
It's not
Yeah.
controversial.
Yeah. Not too controversial, to be honest. I think they would understand. You were talking about the French fans. Well, the French fans, they gave me a question that I think is quite good. But we'll see if you enjoy it as much as I do. They asked me to ask you, what's the biggest player, since you're in GenG for the LOL section, what's the biggest player you try to get and couldn't get?
Man,
Like you made
biggest
an
player.
offer and it didn't work out. You wanted this guy and no, you couldn't. Or maybe you got everyone you wanted.
No, we didn't get everybody that we wanted. I'm trying to think the biggest name player that would be a surprise for people. Um, I don't think it was a formal offer, but years and years and years ago, like early days, um, the Shy was on the
Ooh.
list. I remember this one. Uh, Still a great player, awesome dude, but budgets are very different, especially back then between LPL and LCK. So I don't think we were even close. But I don't know if it counts as an offer, but it was like, whoa, all right, should stay over there.
Actually, GenG the Shy would have been huge here. And the underlying question from French fans: did you ever try to get faker?
No, no.
Of course not.
It's
That's what I told
I
them,
think
but they didn't believe me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Look, I think it wouldn't make sense for him, first off.
Yeah,
Um, Clearly, he's the face of not just T1, but also of SKT and and just of esports in general, right? And so I don't think it would make sense for us either.
yeah, for sure. And the rivalry with Chovy is cool to see. Even if at Worlds it's not going as great as I'd like to see it, but
You
maybe
know,
for next year.
it's always disappointing, like when we don't have quite the success that we want at Worlds, right? And so, just like every other fan, I remember the loss, and I still remember it was pretty devastated, right? Like I look running an esports org with I don't know, we got like 10 teams now. I see a lot of losses, I see a lot of wins, but this one in particular really hurt. And I think I react differently than most other players or maybe fans in that, you know, my first thought is always not about like processing the emotion, but more about like, what do we need to do to get better,
Yeah.
right? I don't know if that's healthy, but it's like I just remember like sitting in the hotel room. My flight was I think 2 days after, or an extra day after, so I had an entire day of just sitting there. And I remember just sitting in pitch black, just thinking about and breaking down what we needed to do as an organization to be better, right? And it was like literally in pitch black. It was very dramatic. Um, but I spent a full day just thinking about that, and we continue to think about it, continue to make improvements, and we got some really good ideas
Okay.
that have started already. But it's all about not just looking at like one point in time, but what are the changes we can make across the organization to continue to get better. Because no matter if we won or lost, we would still need to get better because if you're not getting better, you're assuming other teams are going to sit back and just chill, which I think is disrespectful of the level of competition and all the professionals in it. So, we have our plan that we've begun executing on. Obviously, we have the same roster, but we have a very different approach to managing the roster.
Yeah.
We have a very different approach to analyzing and using data, not just on kind of pick bands and strategy, but also figuring out how we can do a better job around just performance coaching and making sure that options are available, whether it's for like health, mental training, all of that stuff, and not just about availability, but also about how can we encourage players to actually take advantage of all of the tools and assets and stuff that we have available for them, right? And just like continue to get better because better progress we can make there, the better competitive we will be across all of our games.
Yeah, for sure. And just how do you manage to keep the health of a player quite high, especially the psychological one? Because from a Western point of view, it seems like LCK and Korean fans are pretty hard on the team they like, or are pretty like we see some trucks in front of T1 and everything. I know if my view is not the right one, but just how do you protect them from all of that?
Um, so I we do quite a lot, but the first thing that we have to understand, and this is something I want to change about the sport,
Okay.
these are young men and young women as well. Um, we need to start treating them as such and not being like, oh, they just need all the protection, right? Like we need to start from creating at this point with the way the internet is, you can't create some sort of artificial bubble around the player
Sure.
and pretend that that's going to solve the problem, right? You don't see all the DMs, you don't see all, and they're horrendous, man. It's some fucked up stuff, some messed up stuff. Sorry, some messed up stuff that these guys are seeing, and sometimes I'm shocked by just like it's depressing thinking about the world being that sad,
Yeah.
right? Um, so the first thing that we do is obviously we have some support available around. Hey, how should you actually think about this, right? So one of the first things, like a small, I'm not saying this is the answer, but one of the first things that we tell our players is instead of reading the hateful message uh, and thinking about that, like think about how when you read it, you're reading it in your voice, right? So
Okay.
when you read something in your voice, you naturally, because everyone's a little narcissistic, think, man, that's this person like deserves to hear. I just like it's your voice, right? Versus if you saw somebody crazy on the street just yelling something, you'd be like, "That's crazy, dude,"
Yeah.
right? So recognize first off, you're reading it in your voice. That's not actually what's happening. So detach what you're perceiving versus the reality, right? That's just like one small lesson, right? The other is like super simple, which is do small tricks because you can't just be telling these young kids like don't look at social media because they can't. They don't know how to do
Impossible.
that.
Impossible.
So what we try encourage like methods like, hey, here's this period where there's no social media, no internet, no phone. And we're gonna create like active blocks around that. And they're gonna hate it, right? But hopefully some will appreciate it. But the other one is small tricks, like instead of having the Reddit app, instead of having X, instead of having Instagram, don't download the app. So it's a little bit more annoying
Mhm.
to go, right? Like create these little frictions around, things that prevent you. And then, of course, I mean, there's some like also like legal stuff that we do in cases of
Okay.
things that go over the line, especially in countries where we are allowed. And like the legal frameworks are different for each. But those are important things. Um, but it all at first has to start with like I fundamentally disagree with the idea that it's the org's job to tell a player and young men and women what to do.
Mhm.
That's not the system that we run, and it's part of the reason why so many players sign with us, often for much more favorable rates, because the number one thing is like I want to build an organization where players can be themselves, and they can learn to become better young men and women. And part of that is understanding that it's not just the company's responsibility because they're with us and they go to a different org and the other org doesn't care and then you're screwed. Like that's not a solution. The only solution is to create um, better tools within yourself to want
Yeah.
to manage them. And to be honest, if you don't have that, then it's very tough because if a player doesn't abide by any of this advice,
It's really hard. Yeah.
what are you gonna do,
Yeah, social
right?
media
Like,
can be really hard.
and that's where I disagree with kind of the social media narrative of you gotta protect these. I'm like, dude, these are young men and women. They are incredible. They are some of the hardest working, brightest minds in the world, and we pretend like they can't manage their life. Yes, they can. You just have to believe in them and give them the tools so they can.
That's a
I
good
don't know. I
lesson.
get really annoyed by it. I'm
No,
like, dude,
yeah, but
let's not treat them like children, man.
mm,
If you treat children like children, they'll be children. Versus if you treat them like the adults they are, right, and give them the tools so they can be better adults,
exactly.
and then they're gonna be set for life.
There's some very good advice, I think, in that. Just
You're
to
old, so I'm
that's
just trying
fine.
to be more wise.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And to just finish on a good note, Arnold, what would be your best memory within like GenG with the like, LOL section since you're there? What would be like the best
Me
time
this
in your
year
mind?
in my life, or
In your
what's
life,
kind of
in
the
your life with GenG as a CEO, is there one time if you can't find it, maybe it's this year, maybe it's a story this year, maybe it's something that happens, anything just to end on a good note.
I can't say the player because he, was with us. He's no longer.
Okay.
But one of the key memories I have was I remember I had like a terrible day. Everything went wrong in the company, sponsorship stuff or whatever. Uh, and, we were having a dinner, and it was just like one of those like dinners you have with the team, and my head wasn't really in it on that day.
Okay.
Um, and I remember like a player came up to me and he said, um, it was a player that had gone to a different team and kind of joined our team again. And he said, my time here at GenG was the most memorable, the best season I've ever had, right? And like I was like, that to me was like if we could do that for every player that we have, right? Regardless of the results, then like we've built something really special.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like during those tough moments, like when I'm sitting in the dark and, and thinking about like, all the, because you just naturally think about all the failure you had. Like, what more could I have done? What should I have done better? What can we do better? What can the players do better? What can the coaches do better? All this stuff, right? But that's kind of was like, well, I still have this mission that I want to achieve where, not just for players, but for staff, for coaches, for everyone, like they can look back and say that was the most best season of my life, right? And I've had many conversations with players and staff where sometimes they win and they have a terrible season, and sometimes they lose and they have a great season, and
Yeah.
sometimes they have a terrible season and they have a terrible uh, result, right? Just more often the case. But that to me is like the ultimate mission of what we want to try to promise is that we're going to try to make sure that they can have the best season of their life, and that it will continue to get better.
Well, we can just hope then that next year, 2026 year, will be the best of Keen, Canyon, Chovy, Ruler, and Dure's life. It
Let's
would
do it.
be it would be it would be great. Maybe with a world championship at the end, and I would be really happy.
Request I have is I know Worlds is in the States. Did they announce where it is yet in
I
the
think it's
States?
it's in Texas and then New York, no, or something
They
like
didn't
this.
announce the venue yet, right?
I think they said Madison Square Garden, but I'm not sure.
Did they?
I
All right.
think
Just in case I won't say anything, but because I know, but I just don't want to. I just don't know what's public or not, right?
okay.
So what I do know is that there will be incredible French fans and European fans, and obviously American fans and Asian fans all over, and Brazilian fans. But at least for the French fans, I know compared to the G2, the KCs of the world, we are not many, but we need to be louder. It's going to be a little harder to be louder than the K Corp fans, but we'll try.
Yeah, it's
Um,
hard.
but one request I have, and one mission I want to give to French fans is because I think the French fans are actually the best in the world in esports at cheering. So I think we need a GenG cheer or chant.
Ooh, that could work.
And so that would be the mission that I would want to assign to our French fans to help us create. Uh, and so that I think, when the players hear it, especially in regions that they're not, it's not their home region,
Yeah.
they're always amazed, right? Like because we're Gen G, we're a small org, and all that stuff. But when they hear the fans, they do feel energized, and that's one of the small things that we wanted to improve going into next year. So doing much more international outreach, so that you have more people surrounding the handful of us that are Gen G fans, and we can all cheer very loud. So that's my one mission and request I have to our French fans.
That's a very good goal to have, and we'll see if we can make it on our side. Thank you, Arnold, for taking the time a second time for this interview. I think we'll see each other a bit in the next year, and maybe we'll have some more tools. But it was very good and fun to do it again. Thank you again
Hey,
for your time and.
third time when we're getting 1 million views, right?
Yeah, we'll try. 1 million views in French, it might be hard to get, but we will see.
Yeah.
We will try.
Hey, I'll learn French, I'll learn Spanish, whatever you got to do, man. Whatever you got to do.
Well, thank you very much, Arnold.
All right,
It's time to say bye to the viewers and see you very soon, Arnold. And bye to the viewers.
take care. Bye bye.